a Unity certified instructor, and today I will be teaching you how to use the Unity addressable system. And so I know many of you are probably looking like, dang, Unity addressables. I like asset bundles, and that's still kind of hard. And, Unity addressables is like kind of hard too. And I know exactly how you're feeling. And so I'm gonna just tell you a little bit of a story of like why I'm really talking to you right now. And it's because I was in this situation. And so if you type in addressables Vuforia Firebase, I had from March 9th, 2020, so literally almost 2 years ago, I posted essentially, I have this AR comic that I've been working on for the past 2+ years. And I wanted to find a way to add Unity addressables to, or use Unity addressables so that I can do downloadable content. And so I posted on Reddit, and I got a little bit of stuff, but like not really the thing that I wanted. I posted on another thing on Reddit, even shared all my code, going unanswered. Again on Reddit, still went unanswered. I even posted on Stack Overflow, still unanswered. And then some random people would repost it on their blogs, and I even posted it on the Vuforia thing, and still went unanswered. To that point that like people just started posting it, like reposting it on Twitter and stuff. And so really the thing that I wanted to do is, and I'll just read it to you, about 3 months into the AR scene, and I wanted to build an AR app with Vuforia in Unity. I want to add a DLC system to my AR app so I can build and publish once and update the content after the build. I will be doing future updates with new content for the app because it's a serialized book for my Island Fever web series. And the file size is huge. I literally have like over an hour's worth of AR content with 3D models and all that stuff. It's a huge file. And my workflow is using prefabs and image targets and being able to create, upload to a server and then have them download the updates. And that was the goal, right? And so I went through all these things, tried to figure it out, was not able to figure it out for a whole year and a half, 2 years. And now we're here, and I think I'm a pretty decent, AR Unity addressables person now. And I'm a certified instructor, so, I think it just shows the evolution of where I was at. And so when we're looking at the Unity addressables, right, you just type in Unity addressables, and then the first thing that will pop up is obviously like the asset system and stuff. But one thing that you can do is go to their blog, and they have a blog that they just posted not too long ago, and it gives you the rundown of it. But this rundown is, it can be over your head a little bit because it takes you through all these different things, but it's not as like user friendly as you would hope. And then if you want to trust your luck at, the documentation, the manual, you could do that as well. And so it'll give you a good idea of what addressables is, why you would care, how you use it in your game. And then if you want to get deep dive into it, you could go into their version specific addressables. And so from there it shows you all the use cases and stuff. But if you're like me, which a lot of you probably are, when it comes to coding and all these different things, it can be over your head. I know it has been for me, and trying to figure out all these different things has been a pain. And so now I'm here to sort of walk you through how to use all this stuff in your project. Fairly simple, right? And so the project that I have right now is my Unity addressables for Island Fever. And so this is out on the App Store right now, and this is pretty much the demo project that I use for all of my courses and everything. And what you can see is I'm actually using the Unity addressable system with preloaders and with updaters and scroll bars, and I actually have a Unity addressable scenes in my thing as well. And so if you could see with all these, there's a checkbox for the Unity addressable scene. So this is actively in my project right now, and I'll show you how I used it. And so first things first is we'll just open up a fresh new project. And so I'll go to Unity, open up a fresh new project, and we'll just call this Unity Addressables Basics. Boom. And so I'll just do regular 3D scene. In my project, I'm using URP, but I'm not going to do that right now. And Unity Addressables Basics. And I want it to actually be a 2020. So we'll go to 2020. Unity Addressables Basics. Boom. So we'll just wait for it to load. And so while it's loading, I'll just give you just a little bit of a use case for it, right? So Unity Addressables is meant for being able to add stuff at runtime. And so if you look at this diagram, the workflow is you essentially uh, build a project, and that project goes, you download it from the App Store, you submit it to the App Store, you download it from the App Store. And once you download it, all the stuff will be on your device. But with Unity Addressables, what you're able to do is you're able to have a basic build, which will go into your device, and then it'll have a catalog, a provider, and the content. The content will be on your device. The catalog is what it'll reference, and then the provider is going to be your server. And so when you build for Unity Addressables, what you do is you build the addressable package, you upload it to your server through the provider, and then when you build to the device, you will have a catalog that it will reference. And so when it logs onto the internet, it checks that catalog, and that catalog is going to be on your server and also referenced on your device, and then it's going to look for the content, and if there's content, it's going to download it to your device. And so instead of having all the content and everything on your device and you can't change it, what you can do is you can make it addressable in the editor, build to it, upload on the server, update the content, and then the content will constantly be checked from your device on the catalog. And that's pretty much how it works. And so now let's actually just play around with it. And so I have a fresh open scene right here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new scene. So right click, create scene, and we're just going to do addressables test one underscore one. Boom. And so with that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to install the Unity Addressables package right now. And so by installing it, it's going to allow me to access all the stuff for Unity Addressables. So I'll go to Package Manager, and then from my Package Manager, I go to, not in the project, but in the Unity registry. I'll scroll down to where it says Addressables, right there. And typically you want to do the verified version. There's other versions you could use, but verified is always the best one. And you just click install. And so now that you have installed, what you could do is you could download the samples if you want. And so do import samples. Go yes. We'll go import, import, and then prefab spawner import. Perfect. And so now that we have Unity addressables in here, what you'll see is when you go to asset management, you'll see addressables here, and then you'll have access to all these things. And so before I get started with that, uh, if we go back to this, you could scroll down to the bottom, and there's going to be a GitHub repository right here, which you could right click and add. And then there's also a blog post that you could reference to. And the GitHub repository has more samples that you could use. Pretty cool, pretty easy, pretty simple. And then here's the blog post from 2 years ago. And they've definitely made more strides, but from 2 years ago, you could use this to get started. And of course, if you wanted to get a complete rundown of how to use everything, what coroutines and all that stuff, you could use this as well. And so with this, I have my scene, everything with the addressables. And so I'm going to open the scene, addressables test, like that. And I am going to just add a 3D object, a cube, just like that. So this is the standard cube situation. And so you see a cube, boom, and you have a cube in here. So first thing that I want to do is I want to test out what a it's instantiation essentially. And so what I'll do is I'll just create a new folder, have that be scripts, and then from the scripts, I'll just do instantiate prefab. So I'll create a script for instantiate prefab, like that. And so once I do that, I'll just open it up in Visual Studio. My coding is a little rusty, but we'll make it work. And so first thing I want to do is make a public game object and then prefab that. And then I'll make a function, method, variable, however you call it. And I'll call that public as well. Public instantiate. Public void instantiate prefab. And then I'll have then what I'll do is I'll just say um, instantiate that. Then now that I have that, I'll click save. And then, yep, no errors. Perfect. So what I'll do after that, I have my script. I will create a new folder called prefabs. Oops. New folder, prefabs. And there, I'll just drag this game object over here, make it a prefab. And now that I have that, boom. And so then I'll make a new game object and I'll call this prefab manager. And then I'll just add the instantiate prefab script there. I'll save it. And then I will put this in the scene. So boom, add that there. And then what I'll do is I'll just create a button. And this button will allow me to instantiate the prefab whenever I need to. And so I'll just go to UI, canvas, make a canvas. And then from there, I'll go and I'll change everything. So screen space overlay, and then I'll go scale with screen length. And we'll just do, we'll go up here to our aspect ratio and we'll have it be 16 by 9. And then so the X will be 1920 and this will be 1080. 1920 by 1080. And then we'll have this be halfway through, so 0.5. And so that means that if the X changes, the Y will change at that same ratio. And so then from there, I'll go through and I will add a button. I'll do a Text Mesh Pro button. And if you haven't imported Text Mesh Pro and all the essentials, just go ahead and do that. And this just makes things look really, really nice. It's better than the regular text options. And so I don't know why they just don't make it stock or standard, but you know, they have the reasons. So I have my button right here. And so then I'm going to just make it bigger. So what you could see is you could see the button here. If I make it bigger, then it'll get bigger in the screen like that. So then I will do auto size. Actually, don't want to do auto size. I want to just change the font size. Boom. And so we'll change the button to instantiate like that. So now that I have my button, at the bottom here, save, perfect. So the next thing that we'll do is just test it out. So I'll have the button right here. What I'll do is I'll connect the button to the prefab manager by dragging it over. So I click the button, click that plus sign, add the prefab manager, then I'll go to function, and then I should find instantiate prefab, just like that. And so once I do that, I'm going to see if it works. It should instantiate a prefab. And so here we go. We'll just click play. Fingers crossed. See if it works. Boom, instantiates prefab. Boom, instantiates another one. And so as you can see, if I move one, it'll move another, like that. So we have a whole bunch of prefabs that we instantiated, right? So that works. That is our script there. And so then the thing that we want to do now is we want to change this from instantiating a prefab to instantiating using it as an addressable. And so in order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to open up our script again. Or actually, we'll just make a new script. So we'll go create new script, and then we'll say instantiate prefab async, like that. And so with instantiate prefab async, the way it works is what we did right now with our prefab manager is we had a direct reference. And so this direct reference means that when you load things in a scene, it's going to upload that mess fairly quickly, but it's going to be in the scene. You're not going to download it. And so when you have addressables, what you want to do is you want to create an addressable scene or create an addressable asset, and it's only going to load when you load it in. And so with this, what we'll do is we'll just copy and paste all the things that we have so far in it. There's only a couple things, right? And so now that we have that, it's pretty much a clone of the one that we had. And so the next thing that we want to do is we actually want to add a library. So we want to add a library for our addressable scene so that we're able to use the addressables library. And so in order to do that, we'll just use using unity.engine.addressable assets, like that. And another one that we want to do is we want to use the uh, async operations manager, and we want to do that by using uh, resource management. So using Unity engine dot resource management dot async operations. And this is because when Unity uses async operations, it does it in the background while other things are working. So if you use it in async operations, it'll download all the stuff it needs, and then it will use the addressables. And so now that we have that, the next thing we want to do is we want to change this from a game object to an asset reference. And so what we could do is we would do public asset reference, and then addressable prefab. You can name it whatever you want, but I just use addressable prefab. And so now that we have that, the next thing that we want to do is we want to actually change it from instantiate prefab to addressables.instantiate async prefab. And so we'll do addressables dot instantiate async, and then we have addressables prefab, like that. Once we do that, boom, fairly simple. And so with this public void, we could actually just make it another, make it a different one. So void, and then addressable. I know it's long, but you know, such is life sometimes. And so we'll just copy this over, boom, and boom. And so we'll go ahead and save this like that. And there's no errors. That means we're okay. So we'll go to our prefab manager and we'll go to instantiate async. And so you'll notice if I take this one off, you'll notice there's two different things here. We have our prefab, which is the one that we had originally. So I could add the reference there. But if I try to add it to the addressables prefab, I can't. Like that, I can't. And so in order to do that, what I'll do is I will actually just duplicate this, and I'll turn this into, I'll call this one addressables cube, like that. And so with the addressables cube, what I can do is I can make this addressable. And when I make it addressable, now I'm able to actually use it in that manager now. And so there's two ways you could do it. You could use the drop down menu, addressables cube, like that, or I can take addressables cube and I can move it over here. I can drag and drop like that. And so the difference between these two, it works out completely different, right? So with prefab, when I instantiate, it's going to be it's going to be loaded into memory. But with addressables, it's not going to be loaded into memory. It's going to download and it's going to instantiate it, all with that one line of code from the server that you have. And so with instantiate async, it'll download it, it'll check the server, download it, and then it'll instantiate it. And then when you're done with it, you'll get rid of it. So what I'll do is I'll make a new button, just duplicate that. I'll lift that up, And this one, I'll call this one addressable instantiate, or however you want to say it. And I'll just make this a little smaller so that you could see it. And so with addressable instantiate, I'm going to go in, instantiate prefab, and then I'm going to instantiate addressable instantiate prefab. So I'm going to change that. And then with this one, obviously, it's I'm going to just have this one still be instantiate prefab, right? So I have both of these. Boom. And so with it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify. So I'll test it once and I'll test it a second time. So instantiate prefab, I'll click it. It created a clone addressables cube like that, and it showed up. So now let's try the other one, instantiate prefab. It says cube clone. Notice cube clone for that one, and then when I click addressables, it's addressable cube clone. So it loads two different ones. And so now that we have that, I'm going to introduce how to use the addressable system and customize everything to your liking. So when we go to window, we go to asset management, we have addressables, we'll go to addressable groups. And this is how you organize everything. Notice how we have our addressables cube here. If I wanted to create a folder for it, for addressables, we'll just call it right click, we'll rename it, we'll call this DLC prefab, or just DLC stuff, like that. And so this is the default group. I can move it to its own group. And when I move it to its own group, I can have specific settings for it. And so notice how if I click this one, there's different settings for this. And then when I click DLC stuff, there's different settings for that. And so I'll just go through and show you all the different settings that you have. And as you can see, there's addressable data asset groups, and they have their own settings. So with the build path and load, these are by default. When you're packing all the content and everything, you could have the local paths and then you could have the remote paths. Local paths are on your computer. Remote paths are for the server. And so when you're clicking a build, you want to make sure that these are on remote build path and remote load path. If you don't, then you won't pull it from the server. And so then we have all of our settings, advanced options for this addressable group. And so obviously include and build. You want to use asset bundle cache. You want to make sure that everything should be pretty standard. If you want to make it more compressed, you can do that. If you don't want to compress it, you could have it uncompressed. Don't need to. I do mobile device stuff, so I always like it to be compressed. Internal naming system, want full path. When you have like your bundle IDs, keep that all that stuff together. Um, Cache clear behavior. This is important when you are downloading, when you build to your device and you have all this stuff put together. What you do is when it downloads a new version of your asset bundle, it'll actually keep it by default. And so that's what clear win space is needed in cache. You would actually have to delete that bundle on your device and then download a new one. But with this, if you go to clear when new version is loaded, it will automatically replace it. And so bundle mode, it'll pack all of the assets that are in this bundle together, or you could pack each asset separately. If you have large bundles, then you could pack it separately, and I'll show you how that works with scenes. Or if you have them with labels, you could pack them as labels, or you could pack them together as this group. And so for this one, I'll just have it packed together because it's just DLC stuff. But I'll show you one with scenes, and then everything else should be good. And then with this, can change post release. You want to make sure that is so that you could update everything remotely. And so now that we have that, I will go on to inspect top level stuff. And these are our addressable settings. Our addressable settings, they should be pretty standard, unless you really have some other stuff that you want to use. Uh, you really wouldn't need to change these. And so if you go to manage group, that brings up this thing right here. And then obviously you're able to, uh, check out the different groups and stuff like that. System settings, don't need to worry about that. Uh, that pretty much takes you to all the stuff that you need. And so that is the settings and the addressables group. And so I tend to put this down here because it's a good thing to have. The next thing we'll look at is so we did settings, did profiles. Next thing we need to do is look at hosting. Hosting is where we create all our profiles. And when you create a profile, that is how you load everything together. Actually, there we go. So not the hosting, but there you go, profiles. So when you go on, obviously, boom, go to addressables, then you go to profiles, and profiles is where we saw the remote build path and the remote load path. So again, you don't want to change any of the local build stuff, but you can create a new path. We'll go profile, create new profile, and I'll just rename this um, uh, server, or I'll just do my server like that. And so what I could do is I could set this one as active. And so now all the stuff will be in my remote server for this. And you'll see profile and remote server. So you could have a whole bunch of different servers for testing and for building to specific devices, all that stuff. And so now that we have that, I'll just move the addressable profiles down here and we'll look at how you build. And so we have different, first we have different play scripts. So this is the fastest. This just, it'll do like a mock-up of it, but it won't build to the device. The asset bundle is essentially the same folders that you have all your assets. Simulated group is when it actually builds an asset bundle and then it pulls from that asset bundle to try this. Then existing build is when you actually build an asset bundle, put it onto the server. And so when it tries it out, it'll download the server from the server and it'll load on that device. And so let's just try out these and you'll see the difference. And so if I click play, I click instantiate, boom, just like that. So if I go to simulate group and I click play, it does it again. And then with this one, you'll notice the difference. Watch. So I'll click play and notice how it says that player content must be built before entering play mode with packed data. It won't even play because there's no packed data done yet. And so you have to have an asset bundle on the server in order for this to work. And so in order to do that, we'll go through all the different things. So we have with the build, this is how you build out your asset bundle for your addressables. And so we go new build and we'll just do default build script. And so this will just create a new build. Since we haven't done a build already, you don't have to use any of these, but this just clears it out if you want to start fresh. And this is if you want to update your build. And so new build script, bundle. We'll just build all the stuff that we need. Perfect. We did all that. And so now what it looks like is we're going to, let me just open up this path. And so if we go to our addressable stuff, you'll notice how it says remote build path is going to be server data standalone windows. So that is the folder that is going to build to that you need to upload to your server. And so when we go into our folder, you'll see in your Unity folder, we have server data, Windows standalone, and then what do you know? We have DLC stuff bundle right there. That is our addressable bundle. And so now that we have that, right, that's what we're going to upload to the server. And mind you, remember I said we have a bundle already done. We put it on the server and then we can play this. But we have it done, so let's see what happens if we don't have it on a server. So we hit play and nothing loads. And the reason nothing loads is because we don't have it on the server yet. Just like that. So now what I'll do is I'll set up a server for it. So in order to set up a server, what I'll do is I'll go to Amazon Web Services. And so it's just as easy as just going to a quick Google search. And so we'll just start a new tab. I'll just do Amazon Web Services or Amazon AWS. And so from there, we go AWS, boom. AWS S3. There you go. So Amazon Web Services, AWS S3, all that. You just log in, you sign up, and then what you do, you'll get a console. And so what you do first is you want to create a bucket. And so we'll just call this one Amazon or Addressables Basics. And so I'll choose the local one for me. I'm on the West Coast, so I'll choose Northern California. Why not? And then we'll have all this stuff disabled, block all public access. Um, I'll have it on public access. Then I acknowledge it. Uh, no bucket versioning. I don't need any of that stuff. I'll just create the bucket. Must not contain uppercase letters. So again, addressables, basics. Boom. Did all that. Created my bucket. Perfect. All right. So now that we have the bucket created, I'm just going to open it, go inside of it. And then now that I have that, I'm going to look at all my permissions and everything. So this is how it works. Pretty much have your permissions, your access points, all these different things that make the Amazon bucket awesome. And so with it, I'm just going to take this and nope, and we'll just upload this server, upload it to the server. So what we'll do is we'll take this, we'll click upload. After we click upload, we'll go through and we'll just drag and drop. So go in the server data folder, and we want to take the standalone windows. We want to take whatever build that you have. So we'll just take the build, move it over there, do that, go to permissions. Oh, it already has public access granted, so that's good. And so then we'll just upload like that. And so once it's done, we'll hit close. We go in, boom, and we can click that. And so now what you're going to see is you're going to see a folder here with this bundle. If you go in, go copy URL, and then we'll go back to our folder. We'll go to profiles. And when you say where it says remote build URL and build target, we'll just copy that like that. So we'll get rid of the standalone build, but we have this. Actually, no. So when you copy your URL, as you have here, so we'll just go here, copy URL, we'll go back to this, and we want to replace the remote load path. You want to keep the remote build path as the build path there because that's something you could upload to your server. And then we want to just copy and paste this, and where it says build target, don't get rid of that. What you want to do is just you want to remove the standalone windows. And so it should look like this. So this is your server path, and this is the build target, and the build target will be whatever build you use. And so this will automatically be replaced with the other one that you use. So now that you have that, we'll go to our DLC stuff, and you'll notice how the load path is now this. And so now what I can do is I can click OK. I'll go to existing build. I'll click go, start. And once it hits play, I'll instantiate. Oh, and it's because I have to now build it again. And so as you can see, whenever I try to do it, I'll click it, boom, and then I'll click instantiate, and it did the build. And so because I changed all the stuff with the addressables group right here, and I set the build target and all that, I didn't actually have to rebuild it now. And so all I have to do is just go to update previous build, click the update previous build, I'll go to Windows, and then I'll go to this addressable content statement. I'll click open. And you'll notice that it said previous build had remote build content, remote build remote catalog disabled. And so that's something that I overlooked with this, where I want to have the remote catalog enabled. And so when you see here, it says content updates. So what you do is in order to access that, you want to go to inspect top level settings, And then when it says content updates, you want to have it be build remote catalog right there. And so when you do that, just keep everything at. So we'll have build path. It will be remote build path. And then you have local path, which will be remote load path, like that. And so everything should look good now. So now that we have that, let's go ahead, save project, like such. And then we'll go on to rebuild our paths. So we go, well, we could actually start with the new build. So I'll go ahead and clean. So clean all, yes, purge it, clean all the content builders, clean build cache, do all that. And so now that we cleaned it, we could actually start with the new build. And that new build will replace the other. So now we have a new build, and now it has a catalog hash and a DLC stuff. And so this catalog hash is the thing that is going to load up the things now. And so you'll notice how that wasn't on it in the first addressables bundle, but now we have the catalog, which is what our app is going to reference. And so when we go into our stuff, you go into standalone build, boom, we just delete this, and it's like, yes, delete the object, permanent, delete that, perfect. Close that, we can upload, and then we'll just copy all the stuff that we have here. Boom. Then again, make sure everything is public, upload it, boom, it's ready. We got our catalog and we have our asset bundle. And then we'll move over and we'll have it start. Now, upload it. Interesting. So it looks like we are getting an error. Unable to load the asset from the asset button. Right there. So what I have to do is just test it, check it out, see what happens. Okay. So it doesn't appear to be here. The bucket versioning, but it should be right. Edit, that should be good. Properties, boom. Oh, because I have a typo in it. Of course. Of course. Of course. Obviously, this is supposed to be quick, but you have to troubleshoot some stuff now. Cool beans, cool beans. And so I'll return to that later. But with this, what I'll do is I can have a set up another variation of this. Right? So we converted our asset reference prefab to a addressable prefab. So now the thing that we can do is we could have an addressable scene in it. And so what we do is we create a new scene and we'll just call this addressable scene. And what I'll do is I'll just actually open up the scene and I'll just put just a sphere and a capsule and a cylinder like that. All right. So 0, 0, 0. And then I'll just move these. Let's be 1, 1, that, this, move it up, and then the sphere would be down like that. Perfect. And so with it, I want to, the first thing I want to do is just really instantiate that scene. So with the scene, you just want to load the scene first. And then once you load that scene, then you're able to modify that scene. And so I'll first start off with the basic script. And this script is just to load the scene. And so go to load scene. So create a new script. We'll just call this load scene. And so with it, we'll go in. I have all the Unity stuff first. And so the next thing that we need is just a scene management. So we'll be using, then we have unity.engine.scene management. And that's the library that we want. And so from there, we could go in and just get rid of these messages right here. And then we go public void scene loader. And then we'll just have in the scene loader, we'll just have an integer and we'll have a scene index like that. And then we hit that. Boom. Next thing that we want is boom. So we go scene manager. That's the API that we want, the scene manager. We'll do load scene. And then we'll just use that scene index. and then we'll hit that like that. And so this should give us, have us set for loading our scene. So just hit that, boom. We'll start back over here. And the thing that we need is that we need to add our scene indexes into our, our build here. So we'll go to build settings and we'll say add open scene. And then in our scenes here, we want to have our addressables test scene as well. And so we'll change those so that this one is above. So addressable scene is going to be 1, addressable test scene is going to be 0. That's what our scene index is going to be referencing. And so now we just go back to our addressable scene, addressables test, go to prefab manager, and we'll call this one, create an empty, we'll call this scene manager. Prefab manager and scene manager, like that. We'll add our script, load scene, and then we'll go to one of the buttons. So we'll just make a new button, boom, and we'll call this instantiate scene, like that. And so now we'll go to the button. So instead of prefab manager, we're going to replace it with scene manager. And in load scene, we're going to have a scene loader. We're going to change it to 1, like that. Just like that. So now we'll just put it back on that and we'll click play. So we know instantiate, we have instantiate addressable, then we have instantiate scene. And that scene takes us to a completely different scene now. So that works. So actually, we'll just change this to instantiate scene. Perfect. And so if we change it to instantiate scene, it should change to instantiate scene, just like that. Right? So now we can duplicate it and we'll turn this to addressable scene. And so this is where things get a little tricky now. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look back at our script. I'm just going to make a new one. And this one was going to be addressables load sync, or load scene async. So load scene async, like that. And so load scene async, we have it loaded up. We know that the thing that we had was this scene management library, and we had this method here, right? So the next thing that we want to do is we want to add some other stuff to it. Obviously, we want to be using Unity Engine dot addressable assets. That's definitely one we want. And then we want to have using Unity Engine dot resource management, and we want to have it async operations. And then the other one is using Unity Engine dot resource management dot resource providers. Those are the three Those are the three things that we want to have, right? And so with it, like every other Unity addressables that we have, we want to have it be an asset reference. So public asset reference. And then we'll have it be addressables scene, like that, addressable scene. And so after we have that, we could go through and we have public void, and this is load addressables scene. Load addressable scene, like that. And so we'll have addressable scene dot load scene async, and then we want to do a couple of different things that we want to do. So we could have load scene mode dot additive. And that would allow us to, well, technically there's multiple things that we could do with it. So we could do load scene mode single, or we could do load scene mode additive. So it says adds the scene, or closes all current loaded scenes and loads a scene. Right? So let's do just load scene mode single, like that. And we'll just click save and we'll move on to this. All right, so everything looks good in the console. We go to our scenes. What we want to have is want to make it an addressable scene, as you can see there. And so now we can move it back over to our DLC stuff, like that. And so now that we have an addressable scene, we go to our scene manager and we're able to have load scene async. And now we could have an addressable scene there. Our addressable scene. And again, we'll just make a new button. And we'll just say load scene async. Like that. We'll save it. Make sure that we get our load scene async. And then we have load addressable scene. And notice how it's not checking for the scene index again. And that's because we're not actually putting it in our build settings because it's going to be an addressable scene. So just click save, boom, try this out. So instantiate that, and there we go. That is us doing an addressable scene like that. Literally playing out the same way, but this is addressable scene now, right? So if I play it again, I click it, this is instantiate scene. Now I'll try this one again, and it's going to be instantiate scene async, an addressable scene, just like that. So you might have wanted to know, what does addressable the additive scene do? So let's go back to here and we change it to additive. Now let's see what happens. So I'll just save this. It'll load, it'll do its stuff. And so now I'll click play. And so again, instantiate, addressable, And then boom, I added this whole new scene to it. That's what additive does. It adds the whole scene to it. So now, what if I actually wanted to, you were unsure of which thing that you wanted to do. And so you could actually access this whole library from the load scene mode up here. So what we'll do is we'll go public, load scene mode, and then load scene mode, like that. Just have it be a lowercase instead of uppercase. And then we could actually just change this. So load scene mode, and that is what we reference. And so this is a great way to modify the inspector so that you're able to do some cool stuff. And so once it loads and it does all that, we go to Scene Manager and you'll see we have load scene mode here. So I could change it to additive or I could change it to single fairly easily because we're accessing that library. And so with it, we have 4 different buttons. It goes to instantiate scene async. It goes to just instantiating a scene, addressables instantiate, and then a regular instantiate for a prefab. And those are the things that we have. And so with these scenarios, you could instantiate a prefab for each thing of content. You could instantiate a prefab for a whole bunch of different things, right? So what if I wanted to modify my prefab, right? So I modify my prefab and I want to add just a rigid body to it so that it uses gravity, right? So it uses gravity, boom. I could do that. And so now every time I uh, change my prefab and load it, it'll use gravity and it'll fall. So I have instantiate like that. And then I also have all these. Then if I want to go to a new scene, I could. And that's pretty much how addressables works. And so now that I have all the addressables working, that's pretty much a rundown. 4 basic scripts, instantiate the prefab as an addressable, loading a scene as an addressable. And so the next thing we'll just learn how to load dependencies and uh, asset labels and figuring out a DLC menu, but we'll save that for another time. So again, check out all the stuff that I have. If you have any other questions, definitely check out all the different things that you could do on the Addressables website. And if you haven't already, go to Utopia. If you haven't already, go ahead and check out my Patreon and subscribe, support, do all you can. And I will check you guys all out later. Deuces.